I sincerely appreciate your willingness to spend a few minutes allowing me to share with you the reason for my enthusiasm about Metagami, the product, and to describe the investment opportunity in Qadence Emergent Designs. I want to do this in three parts. First, I want to talk about Metagami because that's the core of the opportunity. Second, the strategic plan, and third, the investment opportunity itself. First, let's talk about Metagami. There's something interesting that Mark Cuban says on Shark Tank occasionally about certain opportunities, which he calls TGTM, too good to miss. I think this is an example of that opportunity, and one of the reasons for that relates to books that we're reading to our grandchild who's now 6 months old. Like all books of this type, there are lots of pictures and very few words, and the pictures captivate the child, and they make it easy to communicate with the child because of the pictures. As our society began hundreds of thousands of years ago, we used pictographs in the same way to provide information and communicate about what is going on without words because there was no written language. As our society evolved and as children grow older, we come up with books to more effectively communicate through letters, words, and sentences what we want to say. And through those books, we educate, describe, do a lot of really good things to expand knowledge in a very short and efficient time frame. In order to do that, though, the books, by definition, constrain, structure, limit, confine. They focus on whatever the author's theme is and however he or she wants to explain it. So it's very natural that when computers developed in the late 50s, words became the vehicle that were used to communicate with computers who needed constrained communication, structured, limiting. They could not be open-ended as even books are by comparison. So the language was chosen, and we end up with a programming example such as this. Something that for most people is completely unintelligible, but for programmers, it works the way it needs to work. But for end users, most of us, we find ourselves confused, frustrated, angry over the use of that language that requires us to use it in order to use the computers effectively. Certainly Excel, when it came along, was an answer to that. We believe that Metagami is a better answer for some of the same reasons that made Excel successful, and that is that Excel is, in all honesty, a picture of a spreadsheet. There are not programming elements to at least the basic use of Excel. Metagami is the same way. Metagami deals with pictures, but in a much more advanced way than Excel. In Metagami, you create a page. We're in the layout mode, as you will notice, because the layout run button is upright. We created the page by simply clicking New Page, and then when we wanted to put fields on the page, we click New Field, 6 times in this case, and we get 6 fields on this page, which is now a modified picture that includes fields. When we move to the run mode, where we can actually enter data, we have expanded the fields, we have put labels next to them. We now get to the third of 4 things that you do when you're using Metagami. You already know 2. Create pages, create fields. The third is use the fields like they need to be used. And the fourth is connect the fields with drag and drop. When it comes to using the fields, there are 3 ways to do that. 1, in the layout mode, you can type the label that you want, and when you get into the run mode, it appears as a label. 2, in the case of this blue bordered field with a drop-down arrow, you create what's called an identifier field or an ID field with a single click to call it an ID field. It then allows for multiple instances of the page where the name or the value that's in the field or set of fields for that page define to whom, to what, when the data on the page applies. And the third thing that you do when you're using fields is also pictorially oriented. If you look at the blue elongated oblong, you'll see that when you click the right mouse, this dialog appears. And each of these icons represents a different type of field. There's a field for graphs, a field for multimedia, a field for word processing, a field for tables, a field for dates, a field for a variety of different things. Basically, you can put on a page anything you'd put on a piece of paper, plus audios and videos. And when we move to the run mode, you see that we now have the name label. IBM is in a simple data entry field. Below it is a graph field. Below that is a multimedia field. In this case, it's an image. It could be audio or video. In the upper right is a word processing field, and below it is a table field. All of these fields operating within a single environment, a picture-oriented environment, where all elements of what would typically require 4 components in Microsoft Office to accomplish. I'm not proposing we're equivalent to Microsoft Office. There's a lot of sophistication in there that we don't need. But what we do much better than Microsoft Office is create a consistent method of dealing with data of all types. As you continue to work with the fields, moving them around, putting them in some colors into them, you can see a page that looks like this. All of the elements on this page you now know how to build because of what I've shown you. Metagami pages are like the pictures in the book we read to our grandkids or kids. And the menus that we create using fields that are buttons, as you see here, are equivalent to the book itself. The buttons are like a table of contents that guide you when clicked to whatever topic the buttons discuss. Qadence, the company that owns Metagami, had a vision that we could create software specifically for end users that works differently than the way typical IT software and methodologies work. And Metagami is the incarnation of that. When you take into account Metagami, the value-added resellers that build applications with Metagami, the applications themselves, we provide a fully comprehensive ecosystem of solutions for whatever the data and information needs are in your small to medium-sized organization and or nonprofit. Now, the fact is, we are not necessarily exclusive to small and medium-sized organizations. As you'll see in a moment, we've done business with the largest organizations in the world, but our focus for marketing purposes is on a market that's really unsatisfied, the small and medium-sized organizations. What makes Metagami special is 4 separate elements. One, it's simple. As you've seen, it's very pictorially oriented and easy to use, as you've seen. It's dynamic. Unlike other software that needs you to define the structure of a database up front and then changes to it are difficult, Metagami just requires you to create more pages, put fields on them, and use them as I've shown you. From the get-go, you build pages and fields, and the system behind what makes Metagami so special is the system behind creates, maintains, and optimizes whatever data structure is necessary to accommodate what your pages, fields, and processes require. The third element is that it's customizable, can create pages that look any way you want them to look, each containing all of the elements presented the way you want them to be presented. And fourth is the data integration, the ability to bring together data of all types into a single consistent application. No one but Metagami offers all 4 of these, and each of them contributes in a very important way to the uniqueness that Mainstay offers and that is so vital to users who are under or unserved by technologists. We have a variety of testimonials. I've only picked a few. We did a project that was in excess of $1 million in revenue for Boeing, where they had used systems that IT provided them for years and were frustrated. They put Metagami to work, and here is a comment from Ted Whitley, who loved Metagami because it enabled him to accomplish what he'd otherwise been unable to accomplish in spite of all the resources at Boeing. And Bob Wilson was his senior scientist, senior technologist, who has his own view of how Metagami would enable to be done in minutes what would otherwise take weeks in other products. Now, at the opposite end of the spectrum, we trained a young man who knew nothing about Office applications to use Metagami with his fingers on the keyboard from the get-go, and in 45 minutes, he had created an application for himself to track his grades in various subjects in various semesters and the number of hours that he was putting into them so that he could get a metric for what number of hours produced what quality of grade point. Recently, I met Chris Boyle and showed Metagami to him. He's 20 years experience in financial management, 3 years of which are at Oracle and 2 years at Salesforce, the perfect background to understand and appreciate Metagami. His comment, "I've never seen anything like Metagami, and I wish I had it 20 years ago when I was using Excel to do modeling and complex analysis." So we have done custom development in a number of organizations, Boeing, NASA, a flooring company, a microbrewery, a cannabis facility, and many others. We have also developed applications that are commercial and responsive to the needs of various markets. We, in fact, were successful in the market with many of these applications in Metagami version 1 until it encountered performance issues, all of which have been resolved because we restarted in 2014, rebuilt Metagami from scratch, and now have not only addressed the performance issues of version 1, but added some very nice enhancements beyond that. Some of the areas that we have commercial products for and that we intend to pursue immediately are a butterfly platform that is focused on nonprofits, integrating all the kinds of data that they need, focused on Down syndrome associations, and we're very successful with the application in a very short amount of time. Second is a fully integrated system for organizations that provide direct support to people with developmental disabilities. Once again, integrating data from a variety of different areas into a single, consistent, easy-to-use application. The third platform is the Crane platform, which is a small business platform that integrates all of the things small businesses would need to do, and the Dragon platform, which is still in process, recreating a product we had introduced in another company years ago for aerospace and defense contractors and agencies to prepare and analyze proposals. Who's competitive with Metagami? Well, pretty much anybody. Microsoft, certainly any development language, databases, all of those in one sense are competitive with Metagami because there are elements of each, because Metagami contains elements of each. But in fact, Metagami is really competitive with no one. In fact, Metagami is in a category of its own that we call user-centric software. When you can introduce a product that creates a new category, as has been done with Uber, Airbnb, Cirque du Soleil, dozens of other organizations, it is expected that you would generate the vast majority of revenue from that category. We believe that there's no one but Metagami positioned to become category king of this new user-centric software category, and we intend to pursue that very comprehensively and very meaningfully within the next 3 years. We intend to do it with a very simple strategic plan. Our short-term strategy is to introduce the applications I've shown you that have been successful in their own markets through Mainstay Solutions, which is a 100% controlled value-added reseller of Qadence. We will establish credibility and success using Metagami in 3 of these markets, and then we will move to the long-term strategy, which is to use that credibility to convince other value-added resellers that Metagami is a product that uniquely enables them to position themselves in their own category, in their own marketplace, and in some cases to build products that they would otherwise not have built or individuals might not otherwise have built because they don't have the technical skill set. And finally, in 3 years, we want to position Metagami as the category king in the user-centric software category, which we will play very low-key until we're ready to make that push. Social media is going to be at the heart of how we pursue these markets. This is a list of the tactics we intend to employ. Happy to share them in greater detail with you if you would be so inclined. And the resources and tools that we have either identified or purchased that we plan to utilize in these social media activities. And part of social media is an email campaign. It's not the exclusive focus. We will certainly deal with other opportunities as we are already, as they arise. But in terms of where we emphasize from a marketing perspective, it will be social media and email. The investment opportunity in Qadence first needs to be positioned. In fact, Qadence has very little revenue and in one sense seems to be a new company. But in fact, it is the recreation of another company where we generated $2.5 million in consulting and product revenue from large organizations, small, commercial, for-profit as well as nonprofit organizations in a variety of different product areas. So we have that in our background and tend to capitalize on that in our marketing strategy. The team consists of Tim Baumgartner, an incredibly bright technical person who understands that end users need something different. I have been in a number of companies, started a number of companies. Mostly, my most claim to fame is that I have been very effective in a number of small and large product offerings where software is being introduced to a new market that has never used it before. So we've penetrated, to say that more completely and more accurately, I have spearheaded the penetration of many markets with new software that had never been in that market before. And Ulrich Gugesberg, our third partner and principal in Qadence, is a Swiss national with a CPA from the United States. He was the youngest controller of Hoffmann La Roche, a huge pharmaceutical company in Switzerland, left there to start his own company, where he too spearheaded a very successful entry of a very unique decision-making product into the insurance industry. Financially, we have 1 million shares of common stock authorized. We've only sold 128,000 shares to outside investors and raised $269,000 to do the work that we needed to do in the last 5 years. We've been very intent on limiting the amount of money we've taken until we got to the point where we are now, where we could start a more aggressive push to generate more revenue and add value to the company. Assets, the main asset, of course, of Qadence is the Metagami product. We are seeking $100,000 right now. We are issuing 10,000 shares of common stock at $10 a share, which of course values the company at $10 million. We use that to fund our social media campaign and to an extent ongoing monthly expenses. We believe that in 3 to 4 months, we will have generated enough revenue which will exceed our burn, and that's about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And revenue from that point on will enable us to continue to fund what we need to do to grow the organization for some time. It's interesting to note, I forgot where I found this reference and I didn't note it, but Microsoft has earned more than $100 billion in profits, and it comes in the last 10 years, and it comes predominantly from Office and Windows. Interestingly, from 1979 to 1990 was the period when Office applications were introduced, and since 1990, almost 30 years have passed without anything new in that market. Metagami is the logical product to fill that vacuum for user-centric software that's left open by Microsoft and everyone else. End users are frustrated and have been for decades with the kind of issue that Metagami provides the solution for. It's interesting also, we've done business with 3 major aerospace entities, Boeing in 2 divisions, NASA, for whom we built a large project management system, and Cubic Defense. Of the 4 project managers, 2, the man from NASA and the woman from Cubic, are investors in the Qadence project, and 2, NASA and Boeing have provided glowing testimonials and continue to be good references for us. Ted from Boeing would have been an investor, but he was retiring from Boeing at the time we first were looking for money, and it wasn't the right investment for him. But the conclusion of all this, which I think is essential and meaningful to consider, is those with the most real-life experience with Metagami are firmly committed to its success. In conclusion, I told you I would share the information about the product, the strategy, and the investment opportunity. Metagami is unique because of the combination of 4 branding elements. It's simple, it's dynamic, it's customizable, and it enables the integration of all types of data. Its overarching picture orientation is a very effective paradigm for doing what work users would otherwise do on pieces of paper, and far better and more pertinent than any that's available in the market today. Our strategy is extensively, but not exclusively, social media, and we're offering common stock in Qadence at a valuation of $10 million. We believe, as I made the point with Mark Cuban, this is too good to miss. We believe that we are creating an opportunity for very significant growth over the next few years, and we hope that you find this exciting enough to call me so that we can talk further about how it might apply to your investment portfolio. Thank you for your time. I look forward to talking with you.